One group that seems to be throttled right now, or will be, at least if some of the Democratic presidential candidates have their way, are millionaires. And better. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, they're all disclosing they're millionaires. And in the case of Elizabeth Warren, she is going after them with a vengeance, which would include herself, I guess, by putting up a surtax on that and corporations. Let's get the read on all of this from Republican New York City Council minority whip, I should say, in his dreams, Joe Borelli. We've also got Democratic strategist Jessica Tarloff. That scenario would be her nightmare. And the Wall Street Journal associate editor John Bussey right down the middle. So, John, I ended with you on this. So I want to begin with you on what to make, first of all, about the Democratic attack on wealth. And we'll go into some of their plans. But more to the point, at least they'd be zooming themselves because so many of these guys are so wealthy.
Yeah, you could argue that gives them extra credibility, right? That they could be ultimately taxing themselves. And Buffett also says, Warren Buffett says, you know, I'm not paying enough taxes. Mind you, these may be millionaires. These may be successful book writers or
a
business
third
people.
of Elizabeth Warren's income was from book royalties.
And Bernie Sanders says the same thing, right? I wrote a book. You know, you write a bestseller, you too can become a millionaire. So regardless of how they made their money, their issue is going to be, I'm not speaking for the millionaires. I'm speaking for the people who are not making $1 million a year. Median income, so half of that above, half of that below, and the median income is about $97,000 in the United States. Median household wealth. That's the group that they are focusing on, and that's where they're going to try to get their sort of political points with.
And that's where the money is, right? That's, you know, separately, Elizabeth Warren's plan to tax corporations, a surtax on those that try to avoid taxes. That could raise trillions over the...
Oh, it certainly can, and more the government raises, the more the government will spend. But I think this points out a real hypocrisy for a bunch of candidates who have eschewed capitalism and who have really used their government office to grow their own wealth. I mean, if Elizabeth Warren was simply a law school professor peddling textbooks, she would not be making the $350,000 from her book. The reality is, for most Americans, they can't write a best-selling book. They have to work the old-fashioned way, day in and day out, and they need tax relief, not higher taxes.
You know, Jessica, my only problem with this, and I said this on both parties' fault here, is that they'll come up with schemes to raise money, but not to save money, not to address the underlying spending. And I think that never gets discussed, ever.
No, well, it does for a second, where everyone pays lip service to it, and then they go about their business spending. I think Democrats are a little bit more by the book and being honest about the fact that they don't fear spending in the way that Republicans have acted like they're fiscal hawks. And
a fair criticism of Republicans.
Well, I thank you, Joe. I'm so glad that you're here for this moment. But to your point about the hypocrisy, Joe, and what they're going to do with this, I actually don't think that Democratic voters are going to have a problem with it. First of all, Bernie Sanders has a cult-like following.
Well, they never have a problem with it.
No, I think, well, they certainly did. There were people who had problems with Hillary Clinton and called her a corporatist shill, and people go after Cory Booker and say,
but not
you know,
when you go after their money, right? When you go after getting more money from those same people, right?
No, I mean, they will. I think that they are genuine in saying, I'm happy for you to tax me more, like Warren Buffett has talked about. Bill Gates has spoken about this. People, all the billionaires who've taken the Giving Pledge, for instance, are all on board with this.
But there is a difference between billionaires and average.
Well, I think that is
right?
the line that people are going to draw here as well, to say, you know, not everyone who writes a book obviously is going to become a millionaire, but Bernie Sanders is in his mid-70s, right, mid-late 70s, something like that, has worked a long time. Elizabeth Warren as well. Also, a lot of these people have spouses who could have earned money. People go after Nancy Pelosi all the time. She has a husband who's incredibly successful. It has nothing to do with her office.
This is an important point, because let's remember who put Donald Trump in the White House. He's a billionaire, and it was a lot of people who did not have a college education, who were earning on the lower end of the scale, and they felt that he was going to be a good advocate for them. So, too, a lot of Democrats will say, I really don't care about their personal wealth. I want an advocate for me. So what are they saying? But Joe's point's a really good one, which is that it's going to be hard for them to come down as hard on the system of capitalism when they're benefiting from it as much as they are. They're going to have to be careful of sort of navigating that terrain.
And let's not forget, you know, this is an issue that was almost adjudicated in the 2016 election, where Democrats made Donald Trump, by virtue of the fact that he was successful and a millionaire, they tried to paint him as something... Billionaire.
So
yeah, we'll make sure, 10 billion. As something evil and something that is not representative of the American public.
But do you think there's something else going on here? And that these guys obviously have their own tracking polls and their surveys they put out. That they
tax the rich plays well.
Right. It
undoubtedly.
resonates, no doubt, with the base, but do you think in the general election it would resonate? That people,
I think that it does. This is something on both sides of the aisle.
Just talk to Walter Mondale. I don't think it did.
President Trump used very similar campaign rhetoric to Bernie Sanders. They were the two populists in this, and President Trump was, now President Trump, then candidate Trump was saying, I'm going to go after my own friends. I'm going to go after the hedge fund guys, and they're not going to like me much for it, but I'm still going to do it.
But he never
Elizabeth
went after,
Warren,
he never went after
no,
the
he
hedge
didn't
fund.
because he's a liar. But
No. But he didn't go after
That
that.
was
So do you think that any of these Democratic candidates who are
I
saying
think
this,
so. Elizabeth
that
Warren.
They will go on a surtax on wealth. They will go with $1 trillion hike in corporate taxes to pay
Elizabeth
for
Warren
stuff?
has the most elaborate and impressive policy shop of any of the candidates. She has explained how she's going to pay for every single thing on there. I do not think she will back down from any of it. In contrast, though, you got the Medicare for All plan from Bernie Sanders yesterday, which still doesn't have the how are we going to pay for
We'll
this.
just figure it out when we get to it at some point in the future.
Right. So
And that's assuming you can raise that kind of money.
It is
right?
assuming that you can
It could be a
raise
depressant
that.
as well, right?
yes,
What do you, in the end, where does this all sort out?
Well, Elizabeth Warren just announced 7% additional tax on corporations that are making a certain amount of money, a large amount of money. She wants to tax the ones that are making the most.
I think over 100 million, right?
Yeah, and so that's where this ends up. It will.
But what's to keep them here if that happens?
Well, she would argue a great big market, and they were here before when their tax rates were significantly higher than what
You know
they
what's
are
funny?
now.
Amazon wasn't.
Post-tax
No.
reform.
You know what's funny, Neil? With all this talk and popularity of democratic socialism and the highlighting of countries in Scandinavia as models, we never get to the point where we start talking about their pro-business models and their actual low corporate tax rates. Before Trump took office, I think Finland had a far lower tax rate than the United States. I mean, this is the model that should be based if we're going to have the negative sides of social democracy, which is the tax on individuals.
Can I just add to that quickly? Because you said you brought up democratic socialism, and it's important to highlight there's only one democratic socialist running for president, and that's Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren has been interviewed over and over again about her outlook on this, and she says, I am a capitalist. I believe in the system, but it needs to be just capitalism. Now, Mayor Pete Buttigieg
Do you really
is
think
talking
she's
about democratic
Do you really think
capitalism.
she's a capitalist? Because if that's the case, then
She's
I'm an Olympic
she's-
athlete. You know?
Is she speaking for the
I
party?
didn't know
though,
that
or
about
is
you.
Who is the real spokesperson for the Democratic Party right now? Is it Elizabeth Warren, or is it the far left people like Ilhan Omar?
Now, Elizabeth Warren
AOC?
isn't far left. This is a revelation to me. Bernie Sanders
I think
has his...
she's out
Well, guys, I
She's
do
been
wish we
outflanked.
had more time. Blessedly, we do not. But seriously, thank you all very, very much.